Kene koiwi, he inoi atu nei, aroha pia matau. Anaki ki a mai mahaka, I roto I tēnei Yariki aue. Yariki aue.
Oh, kia ora, kia ora, kia ora e te whānau. Koe te ariki. That's one of my favourite waiata or himini, depending on where you sing it. It always reminds me of my papa, that waiata, and I love hearing it, singing it. It's very soulful. Matua Julian, thank you for your beautiful waiata. How are we all today? It's a bit overcast here in the Waikato, and just had a bit of a slow day. I was on moko duty this morning with the little Pepe, and he must know. We got him to sleep, and as soon as his parents drive out the driveway, he's up because they had sports today with their mokopuna. And yeah, so it sort of brings you back to reality and just how much work our babies are actually when they're that little and they're pining for their parents. I tried all sorts of tricks. One that did sort of work for a little while was singing Bob Marley's a couple of his waiata. He did sort of stop his crying, and I was enjoying singing a couple of Bob Marley waiata to him. But that didn't last too long. Anyway, such is life. But, you know, I'm really fortunate and I really appreciate and love my life. Me and my darling have our own little whare, our own self-contained whare, and that's all we need. We've downsized over the years like you wouldn't believe. And we're quite content with what we have. As you get older, I remember when I first moved into this little whare many years ago, we had to give our furniture out to everyone, and basically because we couldn't fit it into this little whare, and we're quite used to what we have now. At times it can feel a little bit cluttered, but especially when me and my darling want to go to the same place at the same time. But what I love about our little papakainga here in Kirikiri is that we're so close. You know, our mokopuna can come out and visit us whenever they want, and we can go inside and visit them whenever they want. We want as well, so we get the best of all worlds, really. We get our privacy, our independence, as well as, you know, we're on tap babysitters. We've got no excuse because they know where we live. But I love it. I love it. And when I'm with my, especially the youngest one, he's only 6 months old. When I'm with him, I look at him and I look into his eyes. Actually, it's making me emotional. I look into his eyes and I think, by crikeys, I need to do a good job for you. I need to really, fight really hard for your future. Because, the more I investigate, the more I understand. it can get a little bit depressing, I must tell you. So we got to piki te ora, piki te wairua, keep ourselves, our wairua up and our well-being up. It's so, so important. But, we're battling on so many fronts. But talking about a battle that we won, I just want to just congratulate our doctors for an amazing job. And I put it up on my page, Shelton versus the Medical Council of New Zealand. And that was an amazing win. It was an appeal on the interim suspension of practicing certificates. So it sets a precedent for all our other doctors that have been battling this battle against this tyranny, right? And so the legal issues that came up, the other side was arguing that the doctors were a danger to the public, that they were part of an anti-vax movement, and on our side we were arguing freedom of expression, and brought into light our New Zealand Bill of Rights, in particular sections 5 and 14. So in short, if I can read the summary, if you haven't already read it off my page. In short, the appellant was a medical doctor who was publicly opposed to the COVID-19 vaccine and had discouraged some of his patients from getting vaccinated. As a result, he came under investigation by the Health and Disability Commissioner for posing a risk of harm to public health. After the Health and Disability Commissioner investigation was launched, the respondent initially decided not to suspend the appellant's practicing certificate. So the respondent is the Medical Council of New Zealand, and the applicant is Dr. Matt Shelton. So anyway, I'll carry on with this summary. Preferring to instead to enter an involuntary undertaking with him to manage any harm that he may pose to public safety. However, the respondent eventually decided to suspend the appellant's certificate pending the outcome of the Health and Disability Commission's inquiry. Sorry, I just lost where I was at. After being unable to secure his assurance that he would refrain from making public statements that could undermine New Zealand pandemic response, the appellant appealed the suspension, arguing inter alia that the respondent made the decision to suspend him using an improper process, that the decision to suspend him had been wrong in fact and law. So that was his argument. That was Dr. Shelton's argument. Wrong in fact and law, and that the suspension violated his rights to free expression as protected under New Zealand Bill of Rights. The court found that the respondent would not have suspended the appellant's practicing certificate had he agreed to the voluntary undertaking that the respondent had proposed initially, and also that the parties' disagreements as to the terms of the undertaking had sprung from the appellant's public statements about the vaccine. The appellant's public statements on the vaccine were outside the scope of the Health and Disability Commission's investigation, which was empowered only to investigate services to patients. Therefore, if the respondent had been concerned about the appellant's public statements, it should have launched an investigation of its own. Without a live investigation, the respondent had no legal power to suspend the appellant's practicing certificate on the strength of his public statements. The appeal was allowed and the interim suspension was overturned. The court sought submissions from counsel for final orders and directions. I guess, and I don't want to say publicly, there is a couple of legal concerns that I have coming out of this judgment, but I won't state it publicly because I don't want to give the opposition a heads up. But I do have a just minor concerns, but watch this space. So I needed to share that, whānau, because that's an awesome win. We'll look at that win, take that win. We know that things shift. It's like quicksand, eh? If the government's not happy with certain cases, as we felt as Māori with the Ngāti Apa case and how the foreshore and seabed issue came about, and the creation of the Foreshore and Seabed Act, right? So we know Parliament's not supposed to interfere with the judiciary, but they do if they're not happy in the direction that the judiciary goes in. They just change the law, and that's the power of government as sovereigns, is to change the law. Whether they can usurp our sovereignty as citizens is a whole another question and a whole another debate and a whole lot of stuff that we've got to talk about as the public, and we need to bring that into the public arena, and we're doing that via the by-election with Sue Gray. So whānau, as I've said, I've received phone numbers and contacts, so thank you. Keep sending those through to me. 0276025011 is 11 is my mobile. I am having problems, whānau, and I don't know why, seeing my private messages on my Donna Pokere-Phillips page. So if I haven't responded, then I'm just having a few technical problems. Like I can see someone's put up a message and it gives me room for me to type in my message, but so I can see who's sent it, gives me room for me to type up a message, but I actually can't see the message behind that all. And I've been trying to change the font, change the size. I've tried all sorts of things over the last few days, and I just can't. I must have done something in settings, but I don't understand what I have done. But possibly having a tutu with things, I could have shifted something. But I just at the moment cannot read any of your messages. So if you contact me via my mobile 0276025011, if you have contacts in Tauranga to Awhi Sue's campaign, we need pamphlet deliverers. So if you're willing to do that, mahi. We're looking at vulnerable communities, our Pasifika whānau, our Māori whānau, our disabled whānau, any whānau that feel that they don't have a voice and you want to meet with Sue, please let me know. Her calendar is filling up. But we want to get out into these vulnerable communities, and people have already made contact with me in regards to Sue's by-election. Whānau. Running a strong campaign in the by-election is so important to our freedom campaign. I can't tell you how important it is. One, it gives our people on the ground confidence, and two, it sends a very loud message to all the political parties that we're on the rise. This movement is on the rise, right? And we still have to do our research. Make sure that they will struggle to throw us into the disinformation, misinformation. And, they just use that word, that context. And, we've always, if there's a report come out, if there's a university that's done a report, you just follow the money, honey. and then you'll see the bias in those reports. And then if the bias, if those reports aren't covering, like the dirty dozen that they've been called, class as sharing mis and disinformation, yet we know the government themselves have. So that's a biased report. And then not only that, the University of Otago is funded by Bill Gates. That's again a biased report. So they're sponsored research, sponsored reports, sponsored by the government and sponsored by Bill Gates. We know that Jacinda Ardern is an alumni from the World Economic Forum. World Economic Forum is the billionaires club, and it's the elite. So we're talking about global centralization of power, shifting from local power into national power, and shifting national power into centralization of power, for a global centralization of power. And the same with transfer of resources from indigenous to public to private to a handful of individuals. And like I've got a tautoko, the Māori Party in this. The Māori Party is saying that 2% of the people in Aotearoa own nearly 50% of our resources, right? And a handful of people own 80% of our world assets. And that's how it shifted. So you look at 200 years ago, it went from indigenous hands to the public hands to the private hands, like corporations, right, into individual hands. And that's been a shift in the wealth. Same with power. It's gone from local to national to global, and that's the shift. And we're in very serious concerning times. And like I say, and it's good that I have opportunities to look after my mokopuna, because it re-energizes my why, my absolute why. And I've seen too much, whānau. I've experienced too much. I know too much, and I have a waha, as you all know. But hey, thank you all for tuning in to Sue Gray and my interview the other night. It went viral, whānau. So we're going to do this once a week. She thoroughly enjoyed it. She said it was one of the best interviews that she's had. So I'm grateful for that. You know, she said you asked some really good questions. And, you know, I've been doing these lives and technically I'm classed as a social media influencer, but there's some people out there with bigger following than I have. I think the difference though is that I'm consistently on my page, and if I'm not, you know, that something's up, or I'm really busy, or you know, I'm fighting some being an advocate somewhere in the community or in my own personal cultural sphere. So I just wanted to share Dr. Shelton's case versus the Medical Council of New Zealand. And then quickly, this is before I go on about what's happening in our coronial space. Quickly, I just wanted to talk about Marsden Point. And Marsden Point is really, really important. Why is Marsden Point important? Marsden Point is our only oil refinery in Aotearoa, right? And Marsden Point used to provide 85% of our fuel. You shut down Marsden Point, you make us vulnerable to the global market, and you make us vulnerable. So it gives us fuel insecurities. So I'm just going to read out this article. The Marsden Point closure, shutting New Zealand's only oil refinery, could expose the country to fuel security risks, right? So the government has been warned they're closing down the country's only oil refinery, and it's just like, it blows my mind, whānau. It blows my mind. This and all the other things that this government in such a short period of time. are not acting in our best interests. Whose best interests? Well, obviously, there's a global elite at play here. And no matter how you look at it, our Prime Minister is not acting in our best interests, especially if you're going to close down our only oil refinery, let alone the Three Waters. And in another live, I want to talk about the pros and cons of Three Waters, but not today. And that's an important take as well. So today, it's just one of the interesting topics that I want to bring up. I want to highlight to you the importance of protecting Marsden Point Refinery. And I have whānau that helped build that place, you know. Anyway, the Energy Minister said, the government has been warned that closing down the country's only oil refinery could expose New Zealand to fuel security risks. The Energy Minister said these risks are not significant. What the F? Sorry. That is unfreaking believable, that comment. If your only oil refinery is producing 85% of your country's oil, and then your energy minister says that these risks are not significant, sorry, but she's living on the wrong planet. Absolutely living on the wrong planet. Okay. Yep, yeah, okay, babe. Oh, I got the mokos again. The parents are going out. That's all good. Anyway, the older mokos are in there, so the little one must be sleeping. But that's the beauty about living on a papakainga, eh? You can rely on each other. You can rely on each other in whānau. We're getting to the point where we have to create our own communities. I truly believe that it's, I consider all the stuff that I know, and I haven't shared some of the other stuff that I'm aware of. One, because I'm still researching. Two, because we've got enough on our plate. And three, I want to prioritize the issues that I discuss with you. And this is one of them. This is one of the priorities. So the energy minister says it's not a significant risk. And like I say, what frickin' planet when your refinery supplies your country with 85% of the fuel. She said the risks center on reconfigured supply chain. I mean, what's that jargon? Reconfigured supply chain, meaning the country would hold significantly less fuel because it held no crude awaiting process. Officials have sought a review of the risks to a reconfigured supply chain, so keep that in your mind. Reconfigured supply chain. I'm going to write that down, whānau. Reconfigured supply chain. So what that means is basically we're going to rely on dirty fuel and fuel from other countries, not be self-sufficient. That's what that's basically saying. Officials have sought a review of the risk to a reconfigured supply chain from a pandemic, natural disaster, and regional war. Plans for a $250 million shutdown of the country's only refinery, Marsden Point and Whangarei Heads, to turn it into an import-only terminal instead are already well advanced. So the government basically has spent $250 million of our money to only turn it into a station, like a train station, a stop-off station from the fuel coming into our country and then getting shipped around. So rather than us having our own oil refinery, we just become a stop-off for the world, a bus stop, basically is what that's saying. Well, that's my interpretation of what that's saying. The change to stop refinery is expected to cut fuel throughout Marsden Point by about 40% and leave it needing only a third of the land and a fifth of the tanks. So they're trying to justify, by saying that, they're trying to justify, well, we don't need as much land and we don't need as many tanks, and that's good for us. That's good for us. That's their justification. Briefings from the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment to Energy and Resource Minister Megan Woods. I'm starting to not like this Minister Megan Woods, along with a few other ministers. Shows central and local government in talks with the Refining New Zealand since early last year. Okay, so this article was written. It's important for us to get the dates on the 2nd of the 6th, 2021. So that's nearly a year ago now. Right, it hasn't taken them long. Officials have also raised questions about 320 jobs which have been lost. So you have to ask the question. They talk about employment rates, and I know statistics and data can be hidden. So they say unemployment has gone down. How during a pandemic has unemployment gone down? Is it that people are on the on the sickness benefit because of mental health problems? Is that the issue? I don't know. But I struggle. I struggle to see how our employment rates have gone down. And it could be that they are diverting people. Like if they go into training or if they go somewhere else, then technically you're not unemployed, are you? Anyway, Woods has also told the company so I don't know which company they're talking about the strategic importance of the refining. Officials say this revolves around fuel supply security, and that's really important. Fuel supply security. Now, again, we've got 120 members of parliament, and where are they? Where are they? Why is this not on top of our agenda in Parliament? Why are questions not being asked about the deconstruction of Marsden Point? So yeah, I'm just struggling with this one, Fana. I'm struggling with our current batch of members of Parliament. Anyway, I'll carry on with this, and then I've got a pamphlet I want to read out to you. But Woods has told the company about strategic importance of the refinery. Officials say this revolves around fuel supply security, jobs, and getting new green fuel industries going. So I'm aware, they're pushing for electric cars, and they've put millions of dollars into grants for electric cars. To me. The maintenance of domestic refining capacity is of some strategic value to New Zealand, at least for a transitional period. The company has counted, and I'm assuming they're calling the Marsden Refinery oil company. I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. Has counted that the change carries no risk because overseas fuel supply chains are diverse and strong. No risk. And yet our own officials have said that there is a serious concern to fuel security. As we're seeing, you have a war, then what happens? So, our food, you go into the supermarkets, you cannot buy the same type of kai. Our supermarkets aren't as full. There are issues around supply chains for kai, supply chains for fuel, because we're closing our only refinery. Red flags, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, Refining New Zealand is beset by increasing competition from bigger refineries in Asia. A recent 750 million expansion and investment has not paid off at the 60-year-old refinery. It has painted the change to an import-only terminal, importing 3 billion litres of processed fuel a year. So think about that, 3 billion litres of processed fuel. And yet, our refinery supplied 85% of our fuel. What happens if there's like the war that's currently happening, and that war potentially could spread? What happens if that supply chain is cut off and we have no fuel? So if we've shut down our Marsden Point oil refinery that supplied 85% of our fuel, which means we only have in reserve 15%, then we are technically, I'd say we'd be running pretty low on fuel right now, don't you think? And if we're technically running, I mean, you don't have to be Einstein, you just have to do a little bit of research and just use your brain, really. Technically, we're living off our reserves and we're running out of fuel and there's a war on. Great move, Labor government. Great move to shut our only refinery down and invest all these millions of dollars. And then, you invest $750 million on an expansion and then say, oh, wow, that investment didn't pay off. Well, why didn't it pay off? Why do we invest $750 million bloody dollars and then turn around and say it didn't pay off and use that as a justification to shut it down? Oh my Lord. And the facts. So I'm going to carry on reading this. Sorry for digressing. I'm quite good at doing that. In 2020, the company talked of carrying on with reduced refining till 2035 and then going full import, whaanau. But that appears to have sped up. The earliest possible timing of import terminal commencement is in 2022. 2022, whānau. Documents show conversion could take between 18 months and 5 years and cost us $200 million extra just to convert. So we spent $750 million on expansion, and now we're going to spend $200 million on conversion. Oops, sorry, made a mistake. Shit, we shouldn't have spent that $750 million. Bad move. Sorry, taxpayer. Okay, we're going to now spend another $200 million on conversion. And you're wondering why there are protesters up in Marsden Point. Where are our politicians? Where are our oppositional politicians? Sleep at the wheel, obviously. They don't even know what's going on in our own country. Where's there been political debate in the House about our only oil refinery? Shit, we'll be going back to horse and cart soon. Maybe that's what they want. E-bikes. Maybe that's what they want. I don't know. Anyway, documents show conversion could take between 18 months and 5 years and cost $200 million plus 50 to 60 million in demolition. So you're looking at $260 million just for the conversion. Holy hecka! Gee, we must have a lot of money. Oh, we don't. No, we don't have a lot of money. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's a debt. Local iwi are concerned about how contaminated the land is, how contaminated land is handled, and that's fair enough. And that's fair enough too. When you decommission, it leaves a mess. I know, I'm from Taranaki and they've decommissioned oil rigs down there. Here's the thing: these corporations come in, right, and they set up house, right? They um, uh, go after our oil or our gas or whatever, and then they bugger off. And guess who has to pay for the decommissioning of those rigs? Not the company, it's the taxpayer. How convenient, eh? It's all this sort of stuff. I'm over the taxpayer being used, abused, and exploited for the gain of a very few, actually. Because when you look at it, when you're looking at setting up, who owns the oil around the world anyway? I'm not an expert in this space. All I'm saying is it doesn't make sense to me that you shut down your only oil refinery that supplies 85% of your oil. You only have left in the kitty 15% of that supply, and then you become dependent 100% on the world supply chain. And in the war, what's the first thing to go? Your supply chains. Common sense. I don't know. Hang on, whaanau. I can't see my comments at the moment because I've got all these articles up. So I'll be reading your comments soon, and I should hurry up and get on with this article. Some changes have not waited for a vote. Marsden Point has already permanently cut bitumen production. The biggest bitumen user, the Transport Agency, issued a tender in December saying it had identified potential risks in the future bitumen market. These risks relate to security of supply of quality bitumen, cost reflective price of bitumen at points in supply chain. Again, in points in supply chain, supply. When you're reliant on the world for your supply, you are no longer self-sufficient. Red flag. Anyway, a 14-page consultant's report to MBIE in March 2020 listed 8 risks to stock refining, including between a quarter and a third less overall fuel stock in the country, no ability to correct imports that are not up to standard, no ability to process crude in a global supply emergency. It summed up the change of the Marsden Point facility to a fuels terminal would have a significant impact on New Zealand's fuel security. So there you go, whaanau. Very serious issue. And there's a pamphlet that I have downloaded, and it is digging at Marsden Point. And they say, here's what they say. I'll just read it out to you. Our mission: we intend to secure Marsden Point oil refinery for our future through a combination of activism, pressure, fundraising, and prevention of its deconstruction. There will be no deconstruction of Marsden Point oil refining capabilities during the occupation. The removal of Marsden Point's oil refining capabilities affects everyone, especially our food supply. The last thing our people need is another crisis. So let's stop it before it gets to that point. Just imagine if our farmers can't run their tractors, can't get their supplies out to us or supplies to the market. It's a major issue and a major concern. They said we will employ an array of moves that utilises defensive tactics, legal injunctions, investigation of malfeasance, Clever use of constitutionally bound express trusts, purchase of refineries, so we the people may push it in a direction more aligned with evolution rather than destruction. What we know, reports from inside the refinery claim that our roads have been insufficiently maintained because the refinery halted bitumen production 18 months ago. This was done during the best time to fix the roads and has let us reliant on importing low quality bitumen that is 3 times the price. So you remember what happened to what's the name of that gully in Wellington? Sorry, it'll come to me. And the reason why it took so long to open is because of poor quality bitumen. And they had to redo the roads at twice the price or whatever. So anyway, I mean that's an example. That's an example of what's been going on. Okay, the operations claim that CO2 collection has halted. This will add to the cost of food as the captured CO2 is used in food preservation and the increased carbonation of beverages. The oil refining capabilities of Marsden Point have contributed to a diverse range of products that sustain our nation. It is the top quarter of refineries worldwide. Top quarter worldwide for its efficiency, quality of products, and environmental consideration. The refinery has also been profitable. The COVID-19 response reduced its profits. However, the operators claim that poor management and the seemingly purposeful advancement of incompetence into management ranks have contributed far more to its capitulation. Operators also claim that some of the refined fuel coming in from overseas is of such low quality that it requires extra refining from the refinery itself. Oh my goodness me. Holy moly. Gosh. Sometimes you just want to throw all your toys up in the air and let them land where they land, eh? Holy hicka. Anyway, so this may pose a risk to our vehicles. What effect will the quality of imported fuel have on our vehicles? Why are we paying 3 times as much for poorer quality bitumen? Condensate is a waste light crude byproduct, can now be turned into diesel, kerosene, and naphtha, a liquid gas product that creates energy abundance. Condensate is made by refining processes, adding to the regenerative energy products refineries create. Okay. Can we stop the destruction? The Digging at Marsden team are working to shine a light on this issue as not many Kiwis are aware of it. That's right. Like all the important issues, eh? Like all the important issues, we're not aware of it. And gosh, I haven't even gone on to the coronial stuff yet. So this might be, sorry, whaanau, it might be a bit of a long one. But these are just important kaupapa, eh? So the Digging at Marsden team are working to shine a light on the issue as not many Kiwis are aware that we have, 1, a refinery, 2, it is a vital piece of our infrastructure for our nation, 3, the management of the refinery shut it down for financial gain. So I told you, that 175 million was invested into the refinery itself, and then they said, oh, sorry, big mistake, and now it's going to cost $200 million to convert, another $60 million to demolish what they don't need. I mean, come on, people, and come on, politicians. We elected you to look after us and look out for us, not to be part, not to collude with this government. Otherwise, you'll go down in history. This is about your individual mana now. You're going to go down in history as colluding with this government on so many levels. On so many levels. So stand up. Stand up for your constituents. Stand up for yourself. And stand up for your mokopuna. For goodness sake. At the very least, stand up for your mokopuna. Oh, my Lord. So really what these guys want to do, the Diggin and Marston, they want to shine a light. And so I'm helping to shine that light on the issues up there. And they want to also shift their actions to the surrounding towns, and hopefully the numbers will swell. So we really need to get up there, and we really need to tautoko those that are occupying Marston Point, because it's an important asset to protect. Important asset to protect. And we also need to hold these bloody politicians accountable. And if our system's not working for us, then maybe we need to consider our system. So, we've come from first past the post, gone into a mixed members proportional system, right? And, there's a preferential voting system. Is that potentially the way we go? And so PV, as it's known, preferential voting system, PV as it's known. So you got first past the post, mixed members proportion, and PV, preferential voting. So preferential voting is you have 1 to 10 candidates, and you vote 1 for your top one, and you vote 10 for your least favourite one. And that way our votes don't get wasted. So at the moment with mixed members proportion, you have to hit the 5% threshold to get 6 people in. Well, with this one, you rank them. You rank your favourite to your least favourite, and then that means that you're more likely, it supports smaller parties, you're more likely to get who you chose into government, rather than having to hit that 5% threshold, because these buggers are not going to drop that 5% threshold. Why? Because it supports the establishment parties. So really, mixed members proportionate voting was supposed to stop the first past the post system, but really we still have a hangover. You talk about unbridled power. Well, we gave Labor the unbridled power, and absolute power absolutely corrupts, and that's exactly what we've seen. So maybe we need to change our system again. Maybe it's time to consider it, whānau. What do you think? Yes, I know they have PV in Australia, Marion, because my friend just said they went out and voted today, and they've got a PV system, and that's what made me think about it. I don't think MMP is working for us, because it's turned into first past the post by default. So now we have to reconsider, and is that an issue we raise during the elections? Food for thought. Anyway, it supports the minority parties and minority. So that's the reason why not a lot of established parties, or establishment, meaning the red and blue, support it, because it takes away their power. And that's exactly what we want to do. So it's certainly food for thought. But I'll go back to Diggin Marston. So they want to highlight. They want to highlight the issues. They want to go around to the communities. They want to discuss it with their communities about all the issues of the deconstruction of Marsden Point, the impacts of Marsden Point, and the serious risks to our nation. Okay, so you can donate, and so they've got a website. So I'm assuming the website. Oh yeah, it is. The website is www.securemarsdenrefinery.nz. And you can go on there and you can donate to them as well, whānau. So let's do our little bit. Okay, so that's my little spiel on Dr. Shelton's case, Marsden Point, and now I'm going to have a little bit of a kōrero on and I just want to thank you all for keeping me up to date too, whānau, because you share with me a lot of stuff, and that helps me to formulate my lives, and it allows me to, have a continuous topic, because I've got little researchers and little wingmen behind me saying fire, or you flick me something and I go, oh, that's interesting, and you perk my interest up. So I spoke on a number of lives about our coronial system, pretty much going down the Googler, and there have been, a slow. It's really a national tragedy, really, what's been happening. So I want to try and share this video. I'm just trying to load it, so I'll talk to you while I'm trying to load it. That it's a national scandal how our coronial system can take up to 8 years for the completion of an inquest, right? For the completion of an inquest. So I'm just going to, hang on, whānau, I'm just going to share a little video. Hang on, I'll mute myself. So, what we have whānau is the budget. So, coronial delays have been addressed in the 2022 budget. 4 new permanent coroners are to be appointed, and 7 coronial registrars and 4 clinical advisor roles are to be established to take the workload pressures off. So an operation fund of $28 million will be delivered over the next 4 years, and a $1.6 million of capital funding aims to ensure families and whānau receive coroner's findings sooner and reduce the coronial caseload. So, what's been happening with our coronial system? As I've stated in other lives, I'm just trying to find where
over the past few days, we had received information that there was a group of people intending to do a march over the harbour bridge. We engaged with that group over the last few days, and with a view to deterring them from undertaking that unlawful.
Sorry, that went somewhere I didn't want it to go. So I'm just trying to. So what's been happening with our coronial system is just before in 2019. Prior to the pandemic, on average, we were having 330 coronial inquests, and then in 2020 that went down to 28 coronial inquests, to last year that went down to 24. So we saw a system literally being run to the ground. Very important system. The fact that it was run to the ground during the pandemic puts a major question mark and a red flag for me. You know, when I talk about red flags, it means that something's not right. Something's not right. You would have thought that during a pandemic that they would have ensured that our coronial system was fit for frickin' purpose, right? You would have thought. But instead, the opposite happens. So this government is slowly but surely destroying the fabric of our society, and we can never, ever allow any government to do that to us again, ever. And how do we protect ourselves? One, we have to entrench. So our constitutional system as it sits now, we have the Constitution Act 1986, I think it was, but it originates from the original Constitution Act when we were first colonised. So it's evolved over the years. So that has been entrenched in other statutes. So the government of the day made sure that they could perform as a government, right? And they've entrenched their ability to be government, to govern over us, right? However, we have the New Zealand Bill of Rights and New Zealand Human Rights Act, and we also have the Te Tiriti as well, or the so-called principles of the tiriti and case law that comes out of it, that also influences our constitution. We have an unwritten constitution. What we need to do is that we need to entrench and have a written constitution to entrench. What entrenchment means is that it becomes superior law. When it becomes superior law, all common law that is created through our governments and through Parliament becomes subordinate to our entrenched law. So we have to entrench our New Zealand Bill of Rights, our New Zealand human rights, and the principles of Te Tiriti in however shape or form that comes out, so that we have a recognition of mana whenua and tangata whenua. We cannot have a modern New Zealand without the recognition of the Indigenous people of this country. I'm just being clear on that. And currently it sits within our constitutional framework anyway. And so we need to enshrine our New Zealand Bill of Rights, and we need to get rid of Section 5. Section 5 gives the government the ability to usurp the New Zealand Bill of Rights if they can prove that in doing so it's demonstrably justified, right? And that's how they were able to usurp us with the COVID-19 Public Health Act. And they were able to use Section 5. It's gone to court, and the court says that the pandemic is one of those justifications to usurp our Bill of Rights. So just having a little corridor on that. But when your coronial system has been run to the ground from 2019, 330 inquiries, to 2020, 28 inquiries, to 2024, to 2021, 24 inquiries. What is that saying? That's saying that our coronial system has purposely been run to the ground. And there's a lot of issues around what's happening there. And so now they are appointing 4 more. So that's what their budget is all about. They are appointing 4 more. But the destruction and the harm that it's caused along the way, this government cannot take that back. And here's the issue. When I asked the Ministry of Health to investigate whaanau's death after they receive their vaccination, that's what I was talking about. I was talking about the coronial system. Now, if the coronial system has been run down to the ground, there is no process for us or for the government or for the public even to have that investigation. So again, whaanau, red flag. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And there's a bill that's gone through, an urgent bill that's gone through the government under urgency, and I think they're up to the 3rd reading, and then it'll come into law. So, and that only happened, I think, on the 19th. On the 19th of May. So it's been pushed through under urgency so that we can get more coroners and more experts in that space to do the job. And here's the thing. How can you go from 330 inquiries 1 year, and that's the average, right, down to 28 the following year? How does that work? So on the 19th of the 5th, 2022, the bill was introduced, and the bill is called Coroner's Coronial Cap Amendment Bill. And the purpose of the bill is to increase the maximum number of coroners from 20 to 22, like whoop-de-doo. We need to have a lot more than that. But anyway, and it's currently at its 3rd reading, and then it'll go into royal assent. So those are the things, whaanau, that I just quickly wanted to korero with you about. Thank you. I've been looking at my computer and not looking at my comments. So thank you to Michelle. I'll just quickly bring up your comments. Michelle stated, and I know my computer's a bit slow. Michelle, what did Michelle Parker say? Chris Andrews, quite possible, but they admitted something which they have been desperately sweeping under the carpet. Okay, I'm not too sure what that's about. Yes, Ellie, Section 5 definitely has to go. Section 5 definitely has to go. Yes. So sudden deaths. I actually looked up sudden deaths, right? And thanks for that, Ellie. I am having technical problems, so Facebook could be keeping an eye on me again. And what they do is they restrict me, and they make it difficult for me to share other people's content onto my page as well. But anyway, so shifting the terminology from sudden death, from suicide to sudden death, that's playing around with statistics. So they can argue that statistics, suicide is coming down, but if they're put under the category of sudden death, it just means that they've shifted. The numbers may have increased, but they've shifted it somewhere else. But anyway, that's for another live. If anyone's got any information in regards to suicide and sudden death, please let me, please flick it to me. But that's about all that I'm going to talk about today, because I know I've rambled on quite a bit today. Thank you to Michelle, Chris, Marianne, Muriel, Ali, Deborah, May, Kathleen. Thank you all for tuning in. Heath, Deborah, awesome. You fellas are awesome. Thank you so much. Kathleen, Sil, thank you, Sil, for tuning in. It's been really, really awesome. What does Deborah say? Remember the fuel shortages when the farmer cut the main pipe? We were affected then. Oh, it just doesn't take much. Thank you, Coco. Thank you, Coco, for all your mahi behind the scenes. I really do appreciate it. The bad batch, all right. Patricia says, exactly, Donna, I'm struggling big time. They all seem to come from a similar agenda. Yeah, I mean, when even my husband, he sits there, he listens to everything that I say, and if he's watching his favourite program, I have to put on my headphones. But anyway, I'm all fine this afternoon. But he shakes his head. He just goes, oh my gosh. Just one issue after the other issue after the other issues. But the beauty about all of us being in this together is that we can awhi each other. We can awhi and manaki each other, support each other. We can pick each other up. And look after each other. Like, that's where it starts. It starts with yourself. It starts with your immediate whānau. Then it starts with your neighbours and your community. We just got to keep it local whānau, because they want to centralise everything. Like I say, it's gone from local to national centralisation to international centralisation. And when you centralise, you're giving a handful of people power over the rest of us. So let's be aware of that, Let's be aware that there's been a shift in power, a shift in resources, a shift in allocation of wealth. And where we're heading to, whānau, is it's not the brightest future. And those that are all participating in that or turning a blind eye, if you turn a blind eye, what do they say? For evil men to flourish, it only takes good men to turn a blind eye. And there are good people turning a blind eye. And we, need to wake our whānau up seriously, because the future's not looking too bright for our tamariki and our mokopuna. But anyway, whānau, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Oh, kia ora, Jeffrey. Thank you for tuning in. Michelle, Mere, Wā, thank you. Mihi, Hori, Catherine, thank you. Okay, my husband's picking up his remote. That is definitely a sign to tune out. Kia pai tōra. Have an awesome weekend, whānau. Look after each other. Love you all. Ka kite anō. Kia ora rā.
Janice. You could spend heaps on storage bins in this toolbox to go on these shelves. Or you could get it sorted all